So in this video we'll be going over the process of setting up axes and pulses per unit within the myCNC software. And we're doing this because during the initial setup, the axes on your machine, so your X, Y, Z, A, B, C axes, whatever, they may be plugged in differently from your actual desired software configuration. So as an example, you might be telling the software to move in the positive X direction by pressing the jog buttons on the screen, but instead the machine will actually physically move, let's say, in the negative Y direction. And in order to change that, we can head into our CNC settings, go into Config, Axes and Motors, and then go down to Motor Outputs Configuration. And here we can assign our connected motors to the required axes. We can also use the inversion checkmark to invert the direction of the movement for the axis. So for example, you want to be moving in a negative X instead of a positive X, you put the checkmark in. Next, we can perform the general calibration for the pulses per unit, and that's done within the very same window. And the reason we do this is because there is a difference between how much the machine thinks it has moved and the actual physical movement of the machine, so the real value by which the machine has moved. And in order to calibrate that, the process will be the following. First of all, we will physically record the position of our tool, so let's say our spindle, our knife, sensor, maybe camera, and we'll record that with some sort of maybe a ruler or a caliper, or again maybe a camera that's attached to a machine arm. And then we will go to the main screen, and in the main screen of the myCNC software we will move the machine by a set distance. Then, after the machine has moved, we will be measuring the new physical position of the machine, and we will record the distance that the machine has actually physically traveled. So let's say we wanted to move by 50 millimeters, so we have set a step size of 50 millimeters, and our actual travel was actually in fact 25 millimeters, so quite a way off. So then, after we've got these two values, our actual value and our theoretical software value, we will divide the actual distance by the theoretical software distance. So, for example, if you divide 25 millimeters that have been actually traveled physically by 50 millimeters that the software recorded, this will give you 0.5. Next, we will go back into the Axes Motors tab, and you will take the values, the current values for the pulses per unit, and divide those by the coefficient that you have received in the previous step. So, for example, if let's say your pulses per unit were 6,000, you will be dividing 6,000 by 0.5 in case of our example, and that will give you 12,000. Of course, your values will differ. After we have inputted these new values for each axis and pressed the saved button, we can sometimes experience that the machine will be moving in a sort of a jerking or an erratic motion pattern. And that's typically because we have not changed the max speed value. And in order to eliminate this jerk or this irregular movement, we can bring down the max speed value in the CNC settings, Axes Motors tab, the very same tab, until our movement is smooth again. And this max speed value is set in units per second. So this can be millimeters per second or inches per second, and that's depending on whatever units you have chosen in your G-code settings. Next, we'll be setting the backlash in units. So again, millimeters or inches. for each axis. And backlash is the value that allows for some unexpected play in the machine due to clearness or looseness of mechanical parts, and you are almost always guaranteed to have a little bit of backlash. And when the controller sends the movement command to the motor may turn briefly before any actual axis movement begins. So you can see that this will be an issue if, for example, we have sent a movement command. The software thinks that the machine will begin moving immediately, while due to backlash there will be a little bit of play involved and we will be losing some pulses. And this turn, or this value, is defined as backlash, and it can be accounted in this very setting within the Axes Motors tab of the myCNC settings. After you're done with all of this, you can press the Save button, and your setup for the Axes and Motors will be complete. Thank you for watching. Please visit our documentation website at docs.pvautomation.com for more information.